Real tough guy, huh?
Over the years, Huntress Wizard has easily become one of the most popular Adventure Time characters of all time. She started off as this little orphan plant creature fending for herself in the wild, but was eventually taken in by a friendly forest couple, who unfortunately passed away in a house fire before Huntress was fully grown, forcing her to seek refuge amongst the Green Wizard clan, where the spirit Dream Warrior would put her under intense training if she wanted to gain magical abilities from the heart of the forest these wizards guarded. This resulted in her physical strength increasing so much, she was able to split a boulder twice her size in half with nothing more than a twig. By this point, she looked to be one of, if not the youngest person to receive magical abilities from the heart at this point in time, which is already impressive in itself, but she continued to get stronger despite willing to distance herself from the rest of the Green Wizards clan, as she begun to prefer solitude over time, likely due to the trauma she experienced from losing the ones who raised her like a daughter and not wanting to feel that kind of pain a second time. Reminds me of someone, sort of. I just can't put my finger on it. Yet this fear of attachment has never stopped her from wanting to fight for what she believes in, even if it means offing a cosmic entity. I never really cared for Cosmic Owl that much, but it was still insane seeing his lifeless body shoved into a dream clock like that. Huntress would continue to live her life of solitude over the years, occasionally going into Wizard City for different materials or to partake in free-for-all battles against other wizards. Her archery skills in particular were nothing to scoff at by now, as this became her main source of offense in combat. She didn't even need to restock on normal arrows each time either, since she could weave arrows from the grass itself. At one point during the wizard battle episode, which was her first official appearance non-speaking wise, she fired a yellow magic beam at Ice King's feet, although I believe this was one of the only times she's ever used this ability, so we can't really pinpoint how much damage would have actually done to Ice King if it landed. My guess is it would have burned his foot a little bit, distracting him for maybe 10 seconds or so at most. It's a shame we haven't seen her use this more often. The closest similarity to this we got was when she first met Finn in the flute spell episode, threatening to shove an arrow up his nose as the arrow floated in front of her, glowing the same shade of yellow as the magic blast. But after hearing Finn's flute playing, the two of them begun working together to summon the spirit Dream Warrior back to their dimension, where Huntress is seen easily taking down a giant thunder boar by tunneling underground faster than the boar was running, then literally becoming a tree to stop his escape, as they needed one of his tusks to build a sturdier flute. I know this boar is make-believe, but real-life wild boars can reach max speeds of about 25 to 30 miles per hour. Huntress was tunneling underground like a mole and, matched that no problem. The combined song of she and Finn's flute was enough to summon back the spirit Dream Warrior, so while her flute playing does technically have interdimensional capabilities, it hasn't really proven to be useful in combat. Fiona and Cake's Season 2 did take this interdimensional ability a step further, as she used multiple versions of herself across the multiverse to revive Finn. Just again, not really sure I see the use of this when it comes to fighting, especially since this revival took so much energy out of her. Huntress's skills were put on further display when she and Finn had to take down that Grumbo monster Gumball created. This was a monster Finn himself was struggling to take down at points, albeit he kept hallucinating Fern's face on it, but still. Huntress used a grass rope strong enough to knock the beast on his ass and stayed tied to his feet until he flung Huntress to the edge of the cave, which showed Huntress's green magic can fade away if she's even briefly knocked unconscious, as the moment she collided with that wall, the rope was gone. This woman legit has no fear though, or just a very strong sense of trust in Finn's capabilities, because when that monster was bum rushing her like that, she didn't even blink or flinch. Huntress Wizard would become one of the main allies against the forces of Gumbaldia during regular Adventure Time's final saga, if you will. Like when Fern showed up to the Candy Kingdom as the Green Knight, she was able to use her wizard eyes, or I guess Huntress eyes, to see magic being used that most species in Ooh wouldn't be able to see themselves. The plus side to these is they don't seem to have the same effect as Ice King's wizard eyes, which give him, different hallucinations at random, but Huntress was able to use leaves from her own magic that, when eaten, have the ability to give others the same kind of wizard eyes as Ice King's. As in Fiona and Cake, Huntress did exactly this with Fennel and Fiona as her way of helping them find DJ Flame while she continued to look for the heart of Fiona's universe. Taking those seemed to do more harm than good though, as they tried running to a burning building because they thought Flame was inside. So I guess if Huntress somehow force-fed an opponent one of these, it could hinder their abilities. That would be in character for her to do, to be honest. It's just a matter of how she could pull it off, maybe attaching a leaf to the end of an arrow, I don't know. When it came time for the Great Gum War, Huntress was one of the main fighters for the Allied forces against Gulb, who was summoned to the battlefield by Betty, Normal Man, and Maja, since Betty wanted to use Gulb's power as a latch-dish effort to free Simon from the Crown's control. Huntress was one of the few characters who stayed behind to try and hold off Gulb, while the Gumball Guardians hold off Gulb's monster fusion. If you want to call her not dying a feat of strength here, which I kind of do, it's kind of like how Sabo didn't die when being chased by Emu and all the 5 elders in the empty throne room. Gulb is one of the strongest beings in the entire Adventure Time verse, universe, and Huntress, along with many other main characters, did live to tell the tale, but it's also possible that if given more time, Gold could have just wiped all of them out like nothing, as Betty fusing with him was the only reason he didn't stick around for too long. For shits and giggles, I wanted to quickly bring up the human version of Huntress who lived in the alternate universe ruled by vampires. Considering she's another version of Huntress, I have to imagine her archery and hand-to-hand combat skills are solid, but because this version of her is a human with no green magic enhancements, it makes her a lot weaker by default compared to the OG Huntress. The Vampire King made very quick work of her by the end of that adventure. I don't believe this would have happened to OG Huntress due to her plant-based body. Vampires can't really get any nutrients from that, you know? Huntress Wizard does have some minor appearances in the Adventure Time comic series published by Boom Studios that went on from 2012 to 2018, covering its own set of adventures with these characters. However, these aren't typically considered part of the main canon as far as I can tell. Plus, Huntress's appearances are so brief that nothing she does in the comics really add anything or take away from her strength anyway. I just figured I'd bring it up as it's still a massive piece of Adventure Time media that went on for about 6 years to publish over 200 individual comics. Definitely check some out if you haven't, because there's some solid content in there. And Nick Tendo did a whole video about him too, so check that out. The majority of Huntress Wizard's consistent screen time at this point would come in Fiona and Cake's second season, as she became one of the main protagonists alongside Fiona and Cake themselves, unintentionally trapped in Fiona's world while attempting to save Finn's life after he grew ill from his fall on the heart of the forest brush. Or I guess it's horns technically. Lots of her full skills were on display during her fight with Witch Wizard and her escape from the other green wizards. Basically, every single green wizard has the ability to transform into different animals. If Hasbin Hotel's Lucifer vs. Adam fight is anything to go off of, this kind of ability can be insane if used fluidly enough. Witch Wizard was in her bear form when she fought Finn, but also turned into a giant crocodile while fighting Huntress. Even though Huntress only turned into a hawk during this fight, I wouldn't throw out the idea she can transform into other ones like Witch Wizard. Huntress didn't even really need to use that power to overpower Witch Wizard though. Her archery and substitutions were more than enough. Witch Wizard was not holding back either. She was going all out. She and the other green wizards were doing everything in their power to keep that deer locked underground. The heart going into its near-death state really changed things though, because it showed us that even without magic, Huntress Wizard can't really die from unnatural causes, presumably because of her plant body. As when the other wizards threw explosives at her that stuck to her body, she sorta died, but not really, because she was able to just regrow herself from the ground up. Maybe beings like Golb or Orbo can bypass this ability because they're cosmic beings, but there'd be no way of knowing. This pseudo-immortality isn't all that's cracked up to be, I think, because even if she can't die, she becomes borderline useless for a while to regain her strength. Like, she has to be absorbing tons of nutrients from other organic materials. Honestly, if Fiona wasn't there to give her, little self a hand, she might have been screwed because she was, struggling on her own. Witch Wizard and Huntress would have another rematch towards the tail end of season 2, Witch Wizard getting a sizable power boost from overexposure to more green magic in the undergrowth. She was hitting a lot harder, but the insane amount of green magic she was holding in took a toll on her body as well. I do think she was stronger than she previously was, just not by that much because of how much she kept stopping to writhe in pain during this fight. The Huntress, still won, of course, dodging green arrow attacks, tanking a green magic blast directly to her face, and all it did was, make her eye bleed a little bit, and regenerating all her limbs in about 10 seconds when hit by a homing arrow. I guess because her head was blown off earlier in the season, that was the factor to make it count as a death of sorts, maybe? Eventually making quick work of Witch Wizard's final skeleton-like form by using multiple tree branches as bindings, it felt like Huntress was taking pity on Witch Wizard here and figured it'd be better to just trap her instead of fully offing her. Witch Wizard considered herself a godlike being in this state too, by the way, but take that comment with a little bit of a grain of salt because villains love to say shit like that.
I'm a fucking god!
Let me know what you guys think is stronger, Huntress's binding attack or Hashirama's 1,000 Hands Buddha. Vote now.
So, you, killed a god. Is that gonna be a big deal?
And like I briefly mentioned earlier, she did off Cosmic Owl, which is arguably her most noteworthy feat of all time, as he's literally a cosmic entity up there with the likes of Orbo, Prismo, and the Lich. It's weird though, because this brother died to a wooden spear to the heart. That seems like a pretty sad way to go out for someone who's, supposedly this powerful. Before this scuffle happened, I assumed that character was borderline unbeatable due to his status, but dying to that makes me think he's miles weaker than Scarab, for instance. I guess it's up to viewer interpretation at this point. Either Cosmic Owl just, has horrible durability, or Huntress has, large star to galaxy level attacking potency. I told you before, I'm a big, transitive property believer when it comes to scaling, so this does boost Huntress stonks a lot in theory. That pretty much covers it for Huntress Wizard. If I were to assign her a level label like the others, then I guess the Cosmic Owl feat could make her, around large star level, as insane as that sounds. But if we want to assume Cosmic Owl isn't as strong as he seems, games, which is, fair assumption to make too, then we could put Huntress maybe around multi-city block level. She's easily the hardest one to give a pinpoint label to out of anyone I've done in the past, year or so at least. So I'd be curious to, know your guys' opinions on this. Big thanks to Bone for the incredible work they did on this thumbnail. Show them love, please. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But for now, I will see you guys next time. Peace out, take care, bye-bye.